Hey, what's going on, guys? Phil here, and welcome to a Mechwarrior Online skill tree tutorial, or at least an introduction. I get asked so many times during my streams about this question, new players coming in, and this system seems very overly complex and confusing, and that's mainly because it's not described at all in the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down, using this new Shadowhawk, for example, how you can apply the skill points and how you should apply them and when should you apply them. So I just want to say again, this is a perfectly normal question to have. It does seem complex, but when we break it down into the individual categories, I think you'll be better able to understand, again, how to apply that. So first things first, like I mentioned, I do get asked this all the time during my live streams. If you have not been here, please do so. 12 to 6 p.m. Eastern every single day, Monday through Friday. It's a great resource to where you can pop in a chat over at twitch.tv/NGNGTV. I'll have a link down below. Join us on Discord as well. All these links will be down below. The reason I say that is if you're a new player and you have questions, one of the best resources is streamers. And of course, I'll volunteer my time. You can pop in anytime and ask questions. And of course, there's other streamers in the community as well that can answer questions. And if I don't know an answer, generally speaking, we have plenty of people out there in the chat that can do so. So I hope to see you there. Let's go ahead and return back to the subject. Skill tree. What is it and why does it seem overly complex? Well, the first thing you need to understand is you need to acquire XP to be able to unlock these nodes. Okay, these nodes are basically an additional quirk, right? That's what they're called as far as an addition. So for instance, if you unlock this range node right here, it gives all of your weapons 1% range. 1% may not seem like a lot, and it's actually not. But the factor of it is everything adds up. You have a total of 91 nodes that you can have active, even though there's 239 on this. Now, before we really get in here, the thing you have to understand is which nodes you should unlock are really determined by your loadout. And loadout will really direct you in which way to go, and not all mechs are equal. Now, there are some cases where, for instance, if you have a laser vomit set up on one mech and a laser vomit set up on another, they're going to have identical, for the most part, nodes. Now, there may be some alterations there because maybe on one mech you don't have ECM, on another mech you do. So those are factors that you just have to understand. So the first thing I'm going to do on this example here is I'm going to load up a build that we've been talking about recently. Someone even said they liked it, and that is the light PPCs in SRM4. I'm going to go ahead and load this up. I'm going to go ahead and save this really quick, and then we're going to break it down for you. So I just loaded up light PPCs and SRM4s on the Shadowhawk. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to increase the effectiveness of the SRMs and the effectiveness of heat and cooldown, because it's going to affect the light PPCs and SRMs. So that's pretty basic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the skill tree, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. Now, the left side is dedicated towards missile. The center is missile and ballistic and energy, and the right side is dedicated to ballistic. And what I mean by that is the ballistic options here. So I don't have any ballistic weapons. There's no reason for me to pick up any of these ballistic specific nodes. So I'm going to go down the left side here. Okay, I want to pick up high explosive, and again, increases the critical damage if a missile crits, right? I'm going to pick up heat. I'm going to cool down. Now you'll notice here, what I'm doing is I'm picking up heat gen, cool down, and of course these missile nodes, right? Missile rack increases the ammo per ton of missile, or in this case, half ton. I'm going to pick up right down the middle. And here's the unique thing. I've got a PPC and a SRM. A PPC is technically a ballistic weapon when it comes to the projectile speed. So I could technically pick up velocity here, and that wouldn't be a problem. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go right down to range, missile rack, cooldown, velocity, all the way down here. So this is what I recommend. Now, cooldown is going to affect every single weapon except for flamers, racks, machine guns. Okay. Everything else, cooldown is affected by. So if you want to increase your fire rate, your DPS with SRMs and PPCs, this is how you do it. So what we effectively just did is we increased the missile lethality by decreasing the spread of the missile. Again, just like a shotgun, SRMs start to branch out the further they are. So what we did is basically we helped that cone stay a little bit tighter. Also picking up the cooldown and heat nodes I effectively made these the SRMs being able to fire quicker and be more efficient. And the same thing with the light PPCs. That's exactly what I just did. Now, again, I don't have any ballistic weapons, so there's no need for me to pick up any of these ballistic nodes. I don't have any lasers. There's no reason for me to pick up laser duration. Now, that being said, sometimes depending on the build, you'll just go right down the middle, and maybe you don't have let's just say you don't have missile weapons on this Shadowhawk. I would go right down the middle. This would be a useless node. Let's just say it's a full ballistic, mech, but it just gets me to the cooldown quicker, right? So maybe I'm doing a laser duration or something like that. I would just go right down the middle and pick it up. So, and then on the left side, this is all percentage. For the most part, you're going to hear a lot of people explain survivability as you go down the left side of the tree. And that's generally what we're going to do. We're going to go down the left side, which means the entire left side nodes here. This is your best bang for your buck per node count. Boom. We just invested, that amount of nodes here. And when you look at the information on the right, which by the way, all of it does, that's 15.2% increase, and the structure is 3.4. Why don't I worry about the skeletal? Well, again, it really depends on the build, and it depends on the mech, right? If you're a brawl setup like this, it may be worthwhile to go all in on weapons and then all in on survivability, where you pick up all these nodes. Just keep in mind, there's no reason to pick up AMS overload unless you have AMS. And if you do have AMS, and especially triple AMS, these nodes are definitely worth it, right? Moving on to mobility. Again, this is one of those things where I tend to not touch mobility before I fill out these, and that is firepower, survivability, and then operations. Operations, I tend to relegate towards laser or energy laden builds. I'm looking at you, ER PPCs, heavy PPCs, large pulse laser, ER mediums, all those, laser vomit setups. Generally, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up operations, and I'll give an example in just a moment. But for this, because I'm a brawler, I want to go ahead and pick up 60% of radar deprivation. Radar deprivation is basically when you go behind cover, the enemy will only hold on to you for 60% of their lock-on time, and then boom, they will lose lock. That's really helpful when you're engaging targets, not only for anti-LRMs, but just for general information against you, right? Do they know where to aim or where you're moving? Obviously, keep in mind, you can still be spotted by hitting E, and someone could spot you, and that does track you, but that's outside of here. The last thing I'm going to do is pick up an auxiliary node. This is for a consumable. Every mech default comes with one consumable. I usually take a cool shot if I'm running hot, or a UAV. In this case, I usually take a UAV and a cool shot. So let's go back over here. We're only sitting at 74 nodes. As I mentioned, this is a brawler. On top of that, this mech is actually really, really agile and really, really tanky, especially with today's patch. When I'm making this mech gets significant more structure out there. So it would behoove you to use those extra points going towards, and again, because everything stacks percentage-wise on top of things. So here we are, we're going to pick up all these skeletal nodes. You're sitting at 90 out of 91. We don't need reinforced casing here unless you want to, and again, it reduces crit chance receiving. That's not a bad thing, so you could do that, or you could do something over here. But let's just go ahead and say we do reinforced casing. We're at 91. So what does this do? This basically gives us a significant amount of extra structure here, right? Extra armor, right? It gives us an ability to be tankier, especially we're brawl. It's going to increase our effectiveness of our SRMs and our light PPCs for DPS, not alpha. You're not changing the damage of the weapon. What you're doing is you're changing the fire rate capability and the heat capacity dissipation rate. And for the most part, this thing's ready to roll. All you have to do is hit apply. So this is an example of a Shadowhawk using ballistic and energy. Now on the flip side, let me go ahead and show you an all energy build in this case, and we'll go over to something with just strictly PPCs, and we'll take a quick look at the build. Now you can see here, I've got all of these lined up. Remember I mentioned the laser duration. I didn't really care about laser duration, and I've got PPCs. This doesn't help my cause. But it's a lot better than going mag cap or missile cap it, because again, those don't really do anything. But I need a bridge to bridge the gap here to collect these cooldown or velocity nodes. But here's the big difference for a setup like this. You could go over to operations and pick up all of these nodes. And if you are going to do operations, generally speaking, this is the route you're going to take. you're going to take all of this right here. Now, why are you going to do that? It's because it's going to give you the optimal amount of heat efficiency. You do firepower first, okay? And through just firepower, you're going to have heat dissipation, right? Your heat gen right here, your heat value, that's going to help you the most. Then on top of that, you're going to go operations, and that's going to give you the best bang for your buck. So what are those two things doing? It's increasing your heat capacity as far as heat, and it's also increasing your weapon or decreasing your weapon heat. So if we mouse over here, you'll notice that on that PPC 9, it's got negative 1.845, right? So effectively, you're going to what, 7.165 or 55 there, 55 per PPC. So that's got a pretty big change as far as that. So again, you'll see this a lot when it comes to like laser vomit setups. I'll show you on the Timberwolf that I'm running over here. Okay, and this is a good example too of I'm going first firepower, right? I'm increasing my effectiveness. You'll notice I'm actually missing cooldown. Now, this is a key distinction. Laser duration, as far as your burn time, plus cooldown equals DPS, right? Well, if I'm only gonna get 0.6, 0.6, 0.6, but yet to pick up these nodes, I'm getting 5%, 7.5. I'm actually better off if I have to choose between nodes, dropping a few cooldown and picking up the laser duration, okay? Because it's gonna net you more DPS just numbers wise. And this is where it gets a little bit complex and fun. And that's where you do have a little bit of choice here. Again, left side of survivability. We talked about this a lot. This is a laser vomit setup, right? Because that's all I'm rocking on here is just lasers. So here we have operations. So what this is gonna do, heat containment, right? And cool run. It's going to increase my dissipation. And that dissipation and heat containment is also affected by how many double heat sinks you rock. Most people don't run singles. It is what it is. And that number usually comes out to the heat management here. That's really what this is trying to do. Is it's trying to say is how effective is your mech at dissipating heat? And that is in two forms. Your heat capacity, just think of it as a cup. How big is your cup, right? How much water can this cup hold? That is your capacity to hold heat. But then how quickly can you drink that cup? How quickly can you pour it out? That's your dissipation, right? So the idea is if you have a smaller cup and your heat it all goes hand in hand. Heat capacity and heat dissipation are better when they're combined. And that's basically what you're trying to do. You're basically trying to increase the capacity, which is going to allow you to fire more, and also that you're going to cool off quicker. And for the most part, that's it. Now, there are some other examples of just strictly ballistic mechs. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look at another mech here, the Mark II Bravo. And when we look at the Mark II Bravo, okay, its skill tree is going to be slightly different. I'm going to go all ballistic. I've got magazine capacity. I've got UAC, enhanced UAC and rack. Those two help with the jam dissipation rate. And then we've got survivability. I don't have operations at all because for the most part, the lowered heat on just the weapons plus the investment in other as far as survivability is better warranted towards that. Now, I will say this jump jet tree I do not use at all. I still feel like even with the jump jet buffs, it's just not worth it. And for the most part, a generalized statement here is you probably shouldn't touch it too until you're more experienced. There are some nodes, this vent calibration that does help, especially currently, but it's such a rare instance. I just tend to tell people, especially if you're new to the game, just don't worry about jump jets. Here's the other thing too, is you don't have to unlock all 239 nodes, right? If you know exactly the mech and build that you want and it's not going to change, for instance, this Mark II Bravo build really hasn't changed a whole lot. I don't need to go out on a limb and buy all these extra nodes because it's extra C bills and XP that I'm just sort of wasting. On top of that too is, you know, again, it always goes towards what your playstyle is. Some people like extra cool shots, so you need to pick up an extra cool shot. Some people like cool shots and airstrikes and artillery. That's really up to you, and that's where the playstyle. But if you notice here, most of the time we're going to go down the firepower tree first, survivability, operations, and sensors. I mentioned earlier that you may have two mechs and yet they might have slightly different structure as far as their skills. And that actually comes back to, I'll use the Timby, for example, the ECM nodes. Now this just changed this patch. The level of investment now where you had to get the full value out of ECM was you had to invest 13 nodes, and you still do, but now the ECM piece of ECM equipment is actually better. So if you don't pick these up, you're not getting the full capacity of ECM. At least now it's not as detrimental, but again, here's two different Timberwolf setups. If you have the Timby with the laser vomit without ECM, and this Timby that does have ECM, these are 13 nodes that I'm dedicating strictly to the sensors, and then it's going to eat into something else. So instead of me going maybe full survivability here, I'm having to sacrifice the nodes. Same thing of why I'm having to sacrifice these cooldown nodes is because I'd rather have them in the ECM nodes. So sometimes that plays into this entire discussion. It isn't as complex as it looks like, but it's one of those things where you definitely want to ask questions if you don't know. But I hope with this video, it sort of breaks down that so much of the skill tree is really just determined on your mech and the loadout. And sometimes your loadout changes drastically, and so you may have to go experiment. But at the end of the day, I hope this helps you as far as understand the firepower and which ones to take and which ones not to take. Again, if you're going two Gauss rifles on a Jaeger, you don't need any laser duration. You don't need any missile. You don't need anything like that. You just need to basically, you want to maximize your cooldown so you get a DPS increase, right? You don't have to worry about heat nodes whatsoever because it's two Gauss rifles. Now you may pick up heat nodes on the way there, but you don't have to take extra ones, right? You just want to grab the cooldown, and then you move on to survivability. You move on to, well, you don't need to do operations, right? You just run into dual Gauss. And that allows you to min and max. And that's what's actually really nice is sometimes a mech like the Shadowhawk that we were just looking at just got some pretty substantial buffs for its structure. So maybe because of your play style, you actually don't want to invest as much in survival and you want to go a little bit more in mobility. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all up to you. Just know, again, what those are doing. And again, you'll see a lot of scenarios where when you're watching me stream, I'll use the same trees over and over and over again with some slight variations here or there. But for the most part, it's not as complex as it looks like. And there's a lot of freedom there. The biggest issue, like I said, it's not described in game. So I hope this helps you as a new player or maybe even as a returning player out. If you found this video informative, make sure to click that like button. And of course, if you're new to the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, hit that little bell notification. That way you guys will be notified when I go live with a video, and join us on Discord and Twitch. Like I mentioned, all those links will be down below. I hope you found this informative. And if you did, like I said, just let me know down in the comments down below. And hopefully, like I said, I can do a little bit more videos like this, breaking down something into a little bit more bite size. That's going to be it for me. I hope to see you on the next video. Until next time.